I'm so glad you've joined me here in my subterranean enclave, my bunker down here. And my name is Art Perry, also known as Professor Art, because indeed, for almost 5 decades, I was a university prof, uh, specializing in the area of culture, and even more specifically, rebel culture, which I'll define and what this whole thing is about, right? This whole attempt to share with you what I have studied, what I believed in, what's made me have faith in culture. Uh, what is rebel culture? Let's just quickly touch on that. Rebel culture is culture by outsiders, uh, renegades, uh, creative people who do not try to fit into the mainstream, but who have a particular vision, their own vision, which they do not compromise. Their their voice will not be it'll be a knife, right? It won't be a butter knife. It'll be a knife that uh, stabs at the things they believe in, and then we get to share in that. So that's a very, very cursory and probably not a probably more confusing than anything else. But I will define it much better. But I want to just welcome you to uh, this place where I do all my thinking, my writing, my dreaming. And behind me, um, obviously, there is piles of books, a plethora of piles of books, because I read. I read a lot. And the things I read, I share. The enlightenments, the excitement, the revelations that I get from reading, often by these people, as I said, who are uh, not trying to like write a bestseller or trying to do a painting that's going to be in a prestigious gallery, or a lot of the things we'll be looking at will be poetry. I mean, those slim little volumes that you see the very back of bookstores, that one shelf with these little, uh, we'll be dealing with that. We'll be dealing with film. Great, great films, independent films, films by both international and ones that you may be familiar with, like John Cassavetes or Jim Jarmusch, filmmakers like this. Uh, there's so much. There's so much, under this electric umbrella of rebel culture. Now, these books behind me and the books that in front of me, I'm surrounded. I'm completely encased here in a gazillion pages full of images and notations, right? Have I read all these books, these thousands of books here and upstairs as well? Yes, yes, I've read them. Many of the ones that have ignited my ethos, right? Nothing feels better than an ignited ethos. What's ignited my ethos are books that often are difficult, right? Because you have these people who are thinking on a different level, right? They're not trying to dumb down where they're going all the way to it. Now, a good example of that, let's just take an example where it is here. One of the most difficult books, and it's always on everybody's list, of hard, impenetrable books, James Joyce's Ulysses. Now, this book means the world to me. I mean, I would say there's probably not another bunch of pages. How many pages? Let's get here. There are over 700 pages that have meant more to me. Now, it may not work for you. I'm going to talk about and share the things that have changed me for the better, have changed my thinking for the better. When I say the better, it's fuller, it's more expansive, it's experiential, where the ideas crackle, and I go, I've always wanted to think like that. Yes, you're talking to me, Jimmy Joyce, right? But it's not easy. Now, if you look in this, this copy, it's full of notations to the point that, it's completely. There's as much of my writing in here almost as there is of the original text. Now, what's the payoff for that? Do you have to do that? Well, it's sort of like climbing the mountain, right? If you don't climb the mountain, you don't get the view. And the view's magnificent. James Joyce's view. Now, we'll take Joyce as just a quick example, right? I will deal with Joyce much fuller, later, but right at this moment, initially, just to give you kind of a foot in the stream, where I hope to take this podcast over different episodes. I don't know exactly where it's going to go because I'm kind of a free form kind of guy. I know that I think about this, right? I think about James Joyce too because he dealt with what was called the stream of consciousness. Most of you have probably heard that term. It's simply what it refers to the voices in our head. And he wrote them. So instead of writing a narrative of, so and so came into the room, they reached over and got their cup of coffee, and he'll talk about what the person's thinking, and these uh, layers of allusions and allegories and different languages. Greek mythology is called Ulysses. I mean, it's just. Are we trying to compete with his wisdom and brilliance? Of course not, right? What we're doing is we're sharing in his creative adventure, and many of these books I've read over and over and over and over. And that's why this copy of Ulysses is, so shredded. But to me, its physical destruction has been my mental awareness. I, I've got so much from this, and uh, when you give yourself over to these rebellious cultural people we'll be talking about, it is a journey, right? And often at first it's uncomfortable, perhaps. It definitely and often is uh, difficult, frustrating, even blasphemous, you know, unnerving, upsetting, but more than anything, it is thrilling because it's the extremities of uh, of the human experience. Now, Joyce did it by creating a almost like a new language, and that language, because he felt that the English language just didn't have all the words that he needed. So we go along with him. The way we go along with, you know, in uh, free jazz with Ornette Coleman, or the honk and squeak of Coltrane or whatever, right? You get to the point where uh, you enter the singular visionary explosion of these creative rebels who are said to have a vision. And so it's not like experiencing culture that is entertainment. That's okay. Strawberry art, I call it, right? You read a book and it's pleasant. It's a murder mystery. You go to a film and it's wholly enjoyable. That's great. That's the human experience can be entertaining. It can be, you know, low on the charge voltage, right? But then there's the things that you end up breathing, that become part of who you are. This is one of those books for me, and there's many other things we'll talk about. I'm going to be talking about, as I say, film. I'm going to be talking about. I may even talk a bit about dance, the idea of freeform dance as well. But let's just see where it takes us, because um, Joyce wanted to create a river of sound, right? Sensuality. And words are just black smudges on a page. We read them, and what do we get from it, right? Music is just noise. It's just you know the, uh, banging pieces of material together, making a sound, or squeaking, or a bit of electronic uh, impulses going through a string. But then you get, Jimi Hendrix, you get whatever. Um, so I I'm not trying to decode things. I'm not analytic, right? I'm not going to try to talk about things in terms of their practicalities, right? And how Joyce knew so many languages, and I mean that's how he survived, right? He taught languages in Trieste and Paris when he was writing these, astounding books like Ulysses and Finnegan's Wake and so forth. Uh, the books themselves were not keeping he and his wife Nora and their two kids, Giorgio and Lucia. Uh, its teaching was survival, and when he got to Paris, he had a few patrons that helped him. But anyway, we'll get into that. I just want to mention one more thing about books before we move on a little. Um, we live in a time where uh, everything is, in terms of media, in terms of the culture. Um, there's a sense of expedience, a sense of disposability, right? You can find new things so quickly. Uh, in my life, uh, the culture that I embraced that I'll be sharing with you is heavy. Not only cerebrally, but also physically. And that weight, right, of books, of vinyl recordings, of film. I'm practicing photographer. I have been, since my youth, and that involves a lot of film. Uh, Albums of photos of negatives being cataloged and so forth. Uh, the physicality, and there is something. I hope I don't sound like some, you know, uh, boomer luddite here, but there is something about the tactility, the physicality of things that creates a kind of a talisman magic about them, right? Like a, a book, the physicality. I'll give you an example, not only of books that you know have been petted and loved so much they're wasted. Uh, Here's an example, right? Okay, here's a book, the great Russian 1930s novel, The Master and Margarita, by Mikhail um, Bulgakov. Now, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I think it's Bulgakov. Anyhow, uh, apologies for those who. It's like Van Gogh is really Van Gogh. You know, I think you know who I'm talking about. In any way, this book is sublime. It deals with kind of a Faustian concept of the devil coming down to Moscow. He comes to Moscow because he's going to do some magic tricks, some black magic tricks. And he comes along with some other, fallen angels, one being a cat, an amazing cat who can stand on his hind legs and is almost human like and likes his vodka and has a passion for guns. Anyway, it's a glorious story, and I read this. This is the first English translation that came out about 1967, I believe. Uh, I know that because one of the people who read this novel and was very, very entranced by it was the singer-songwriter who just passed away a short time ago, Marianne Faithfull. Now, Marianne Faithfull was at that time in the mid '60s with Mick Jagger, lead singer of the Rolling Stones. She praised this book and gave it to him, and the result was that he um, wrote the song "Sympathy for the Devil," which was recorded by the Rolling Stones. Where you have, please allow me to introduce myself. I'm a man of wealth and taste, and it's the devil. Uh, Now, I love this book, and when I first read it too, but as things turn out, it wasn't the full manuscript. It was the first English translation. Since then, there's been other translations, but there was one done which has been praised because of all the notations and everything. And it came out as a hardcover edition recently, and it came out as a hardcover. Anyway, and I purchased a copy, and it's a Penguin classic book, but beautiful, beautiful design and everything on the cover. But the cover, it's embossed, and the actual imprint is causing it to flake off. Just one of those bad designs. Everything else is great. So what I did was, and there isn't a dust jacket with it, I simply made my own dust jacket. I do that now and again, which means I personalize it. I put my own little, clunky collage on the cover, sort of a punkish, crazy little thing, and even put a photo of my own little cat, Ruby, on the back there. Uh, because of the cat in the novel. Anyway, why am I telling you this? Because of this tactility idea that the personalizing these books become yours. They become, you are attached to them. You have a relationship with them. You uh, and to do something as simple as do an actual hand done cover or put your own notations in it. Please make notes in your books. Uh, they're not things to sit on the shelf. There's things they're things to sit in your mind, to sit in your actual philosophy, your spirituality. I hope I'm not being too cosmic on you here, but I think you understand what I mean. And there, when you have a book, it's much different than reading something on a screen. It's something behind glass. This is actually here in your hands. It's got a book has a smell. It's got I'm not. I hope I'm not trying to be some weird biblio fetishist here. It's just there is something about books. So I'm going to be talking about, and that's how we've got to this point in history that novels, whether it's Don Quixote or this book from the 1930s, um, they were read, right? And in the very back of this, I put one of the famous quotes from it, which says, "Manuscripts don't burn," uh, which, even though he burned his own manuscript out of frustration and depression, uh, but it was rewritten and so forth, a bit like Malcolm Lowry, his great book Under the Volcano, which was destroyed in a fire. Uh, the ideas are there. The ideas are not just on paper, they're carried in your mind. So let's move to another thing about uh, the the rebels, the people who do these creative things, um, who make the culture that I call rebel culture. That I don't know if I'm the only person that calls it rebel culture. This outsider sort of people who are marginalized, and they're dealing with issues that uh, some people see as taboo, some people see as repulsive. They're all part of the human experience, right? Even the devil. The devil is alluring uh, because he's a fallen angel, because he is someone who, the sort of the interest in the fascination with um, sort of criminals, outsiders, people who don't follow laws but make up their own uh, to get a deeper truth. Not just to be uh, criminal, but rather to circumvent propriety and the social restrictions that are put on human behavior. So a lot of these people who do rebel culture and create rebel culture are tender spirits. They have they get bruised easy because they feel things so deeply. And we'll talk about this as we get going to. But let's just take James Joyce as an example, right? Now, let's going to move this. I do not use, as you can tell, I'm sort of talking off the top. I do have some notes. I have a clipboard. I've I've lectured for so many years that I've always had notes. I uh, don't use a teleprompter, though. I mean, it's just not what I do. So bear with me on my use of notes. Again, it's actual paper. You know, it's not just light, but I do have a clipboard, which I have here, and I refer to now and again. I hope my occasional glance over to see where I am, because I'll be putting in images, um, when I edit and try to make this a full experience for you. Um, so, this visionary quest that the rebels are on, uh, often what they do, and a lot of the books here, including Ulysses and many, they're banned, right? They're seen as subversive. They're seen as a threat when all they're trying to do is to talk about a kind of human truth. But people like to protect themselves from what they don't know or understand or what they haven't experienced, right? You know yourself if you travel somewhere. I've done a lot of travel in my life, luckily. Uh, I've traveled a lot in, well, let's take it, Morocco, uh, Egypt, Muslim countries, and I've learned so much about the music, the culture, the food. So I'm able to put that in context with the view that other people have that haven't experienced that. Uh, I spent the better part of off and on, but over 5 years in the Himalayas. I did a book dealing with the monastic and nomadic culture, Tibetan cultures, and I learned so much, right? So I get to have this experiential sense of existence. Now, a lot of these people we're going to look at also live uh, through a kind of journey. And sometimes it's very hard. Sometimes it's very self destructive. But in the end, their ability to, mm, to talk about the passionate, extreme levels of uh, the short time we have to experience life, right? What did Dante, the great Italian poet, call it? A brief waking time. We only have a few decades to dance in the sun. That's it, And so you can't sit and go, oh, maybe, what's my 5 year plan? It's tomorrow, right? And a lot of these people, these um, rebels, uh, no, you can't wait for tomorrow, right? It's immediate, right? So the other thing is, and this is, I guess, a major theme to what we'll be looking at: authenticity, truth. Ooh, that's a wiggly term. But what it is it can be to yourself, right? Doesn't have to be some absolute, but what's true to you, and you don't want to in any way have your art or what you do uh, be muted or edited by fear, by judgment, and so forth. So some of these things we're going to be looking at are really challenging. Some of them are almost frightening. Uh, but there's that idea of the sublime. I think I'll do a whole section, I think, on sublime. The idea of something so beautiful is frightening, right? The idea like a waterfall, the power of that, or a thunderstorm or something where it's dangerous, but at the same time it's exhilarating. because we're on the edge of life and death and so forth. So we'll talk about that. Now, James Joyce, I just want to circle back to Mr. Joyce. He was a person just like us, right? A person who lived and breathed and wrote about, in his book Ulysses, about an everyday man, right? And an everyday woman as well. The wife, Molly Bloom, the wife of Leopold Bloom, this advertising guy, and it's all about what goes on in their minds, right? This idea of the uh, inner monologue or the stream of consciousness. And Joyce himself was a family man, right? He wasn't some adventurer that was always, heading off somewhere. He had his daughter Lucia. Uh, Now, the name Lucia, his daughter's name, came from Saint Lucia, who's the saint of blindness. Joyce was going blind, and by the time he was doing his final uh, notes for uh, Finnegan's Wake and other, he was virtually he was using colored pencils to so he could define things just by their color. Uh, Lucia also means light, right? So he called Lucia with this sense of his own perception, and but unfortunately, Lucia had very serious mental issues. She was schizophrenic, and he did everything he could for her. Though Lucia ended up being institutionalized for most of her life. And uh, the thing about that is that for Joyce, and he was very close to Lucia, he shared in her visionary world, which was extreme, and they created their own language together, which came out in his writings. Um, just the things that he experienced. This is the other thing. Whether it's we'll look at what's an example. Jack Kerouac, On the Road. He wrote about his friends. They were in a novel, but these were, um, you know, being this tender spirit with the antennae that pick up everything, just the way Joyce was. Uh, that was put into the work. Then we get to experience that authenticity, that truth, right? It's not creating a character or pretending to be something you don't understand. It's something you totally understand. Joyce understood the power of the subterranean mind through himself, but also through his daughter. Um, so I think that's kind of important that the layers of experience uh, are not uh, stepped over with these rebel cultural people. The idea of human suffering, oh, no one wants to hear about that. No, you'll deal with it. Someone like, I don't know, Sylvia Plath, and her writings and her understanding of depression and deep feelings. So these are real, um, uh, substantially important and gifted creative entities, and that's who we're going to be dealing with. So I hope this is clear. I hope with my ramble, it's it's a bit like stream of consciousness. I know, but I know what I'm doing, and I've got as I say, decades of all these books are jammed in this head. They're under this hat, uh, and I'm trying to put it in a way that will ignite your interest uh, in something which I think is paramount to the enjoyment of being alive. Um, and you take it and form it the way you do. Not everything I do. Some of you will, pick up Ulysses and go, "What the hell is this about?" Other things you'll go, "Oh my God, I thank you for that." I can only, share with what and is it peculiar or particular or, to me? Well, yes, in a way, but it's also when I was doing one of my courses at university, I called it the beat aesthetic. And it was about the beat generation, including Jack Kerouac, who I just mentioned, William Burroughs, the poet Allen Ginsberg, and 1950s sort of post-war American need for uh, a new way of existing on the road, big American cars on large American highways, experience, not, nesting in a prefab house and worrying about your lawn and it was more, a kind of a freedom, right? And so this idea of the beat aesthetic is an idea, a philosophy, and it sort of encapsulates a lot of what the rebel culture is about, right? William Burroughs going to Tangier, Morocco, and writing Naked Lunch. Uh, so much of, anyway. So let's see where I'm going to take it now. I'm checking my notes because I went on a little bit about a little bit of a journey of my own there. All right. So, yeah, rebel culture and this podcast is not going to be about uh, sort of facts. It's not a how-to thing. It's more of a you take from it, as I say, what you really would like. I hope it's going to be a glorious flow of ideas, and some of them will work for you. I've got a lot of those that I'll be sharing, but I hope it's not too obtuse, and I hope that that it will be an enjoyable ride with all of these sort of darkness. There is a darkness to a lot of what I deal with too, but I hope that in the end, um, there's going to be a sort of a meaty center of um, uh, how you can um, embrace uh, life and culture without any fear, without any constrictions, without any without putting any blinkers on your vision. Okay, that's it. Okay. Now, I was going to mention this. Um, Personal stories, right? They're the things. Keep notebooks, for God's sake. Keep notebooks. Keep uh, whatever happens to you. Usually, people keep notebooks when they go traveling. Um, because it's exciting. New experiences. Well, every day should have those experiences. Like David Lynch says, every day do something for yourself, right? Enjoyable and celebrate that. Celebration can be from the simplest things. Every day I think, oh, I'd love to be back in Marrakesh, Morocco, going through the souk there, the markets, and going out onto the Sahara Desert and sleeping under the stars. Yeah, it's fabulous. it's great, but you can't do it every day. But what you can do is find a momentary thing that will, you know, bring you to that. Now, here's a story, and your personal experiences are paramount to that. That's your life. You know, like Nick Cave, the singer, whose photo is. Do I have it there? No, I took it down. I had one of my photos of Nick Cave up there. Anyway, Nick Cave, the great singer, songwriter, writer, uh, said that somebody asked him what was his most cherished trait, what about himself, what did he value more than anything? And he didn't hesitate. He said his memory, because your memory is who you are, right? Everything comes from that. I have the memory of all these books, of my life experiences. I mentioned going to the desert, Sahara Desert, and sleeping under the stars. So I did that with my daughter. So these are memories that become part of whatever you do and celebrate them. But so many years ago now, I was in Ireland, and of course Ulysses is set in Ireland. And there's a wonderful, I think he's passed away now, a wonderful man who I think was the last living nephew or something like that of James Joyce, a guy called Ken Monahan. And every year in Dublin, they have what's called Bloomsday, which is a celebration of that day, which I mentioned, that Ulysses takes place. There's one day in this book. And one thing they have is they have the reading of different parts of Ulysses at the James Joyce Center in Dublin. And most of the readers are Irish actors, right, that come there and they do that. I mean, it's so musical. James Joyce's Ulysses it's a babbling river of sound, the Liffey River in Dublin. I mean, it's just. And I was doing some research, and I was at a sort of a retreat there called Anna which if you I'll talk more about that later too. But it's a place that if you're any kind of creative person, music, writing, painting, you can go and stay there, apply to stay there. Anyway, and I was there, and I contacted Ken Monahan, about coming down to the Bloomsday celebrations at in Dublin for James Joyce, and he very magnanimously said, "Well, why don't you read something? Why don't you come down and read something?" What, on Bloomsday? You know, I'm with my Canadian accent and my. He said, "Oh, please, I'd love that, Art. Please, you'll come in." So I went, "Great, I'll do that." So I went down to Dublin from the north where I was staying, up northern part of Ireland, and I arrived. I was very nervous because I had this copy of Ulysses to read from, and I had this section I wanted to read, and it was falling apart, and it was just, this is not quite as bad as it is here, but it was pretty threadbare. And I arrived, and it was 10 o'clock in the morning, and the first thing that happened was that this very chirpy young Irish woman said she had a tray of Guinness, the beer, the heavy porter stout beer. And 10 o'clock in the morning, I had one very quickly. I was nervous. And I was going up the stairs, and she came down the stairs, and she said, "Would you like another one?" So by the time I I nervously drank too much, is what I'm saying. So when I got up to read, I stood up in front of this audience, and I just listened to these uh, you know, completely stellar people reading passages, Irish writers and scholars and who knows what. And then I got up to read mine a little bit, and I stood up, and in nervousness, the it fell apart. It just went all over the floor and everything, and I was a little woozy from the drinking too much Guinness at 10 in the morning. And I did my reading, and when I finished, there was just this look of dismay. I don't think I did James Joyce well, and all these people. Anyway, Ken said, well, it was a unique. It's a Canadian. Anyway, experiences. Okay. Um, let's see how far I'll take this today for the first one. Um, let's move to another page here. All right. Where are we going now? Um, boom, boom, boom. Okay. I'll just finish with this idea of personalizing, making culture authentic to you. The people I'm going to be dealing with have done that, but in terms of anything, when you take someone else's voice and make it part of yours, then you have this incredible union of ideas and feelings. It was a writer way back when, I think it was like 1909. I think that sticks in my mind. A guy called Willem Voyinger. And Voyinger wrote a book called Abstraction and Empathy. And what it was about the connection between the viewer, the reader, the listener, and a work of art, and how the greatest works of art, the separation between the audience, the work of art, and the creator becomes invisible. It's the triangular of all three things come together, and you know that yourself when you're watching a movie or reading a book or looking at a painting where you time becomes elastic, right? Becomes invisible, and you're doing nothing other than experiencing the transcendence of whatever that work of art's trying to do. It's beautiful. It's just one of the greatest things that can happen in a lifetime, and it doesn't happen with every work of art. But I find, in truth, rebel art, rebel culture uh, goes to that um, still point more than any other, because there is a sense of truth of conception with the person who's making that kind of culture. I think that in understanding uh, rebel culture fully, you have to realize that sometimes these people who change things and become relatively or are very well known begin with an authentic voice that's so undeniable that it changes the society. Instead of fitting into it, instead of bending for the taste of the time, they create something which absolutely redefines. Right? Does that still say they're a rebel when they become accepted? Well, you have to sort of put things in context. So a number of the people we're going to look at, you'll go, well, why is that person referred to as a rebel? You know, they're selling millions of records, or they're, everybody's read their books, or whatever. We have to sort of understand that idea, that how the power of art can be that it actually changes society and culture rather than just being something that plays along and is, as I call it, like entertainment for that. Let's leave it there. I think that's a good place to stop it for now. Uh, I hope that you can, you know, embrace where I'm taking this. This is the first one, the first episode of Rebel Culture. I have so much that I'm delighted to share with you. Um, Please come along. They will become, I can't say they'll become tighter, but they might become more polished. Because I'm not, this is very odd, me talking um, to no one. Right? I'm used to lecturing where there's an audience and some sort of dialogue. But I'm comfortable with this, knowing that you out there are going to be listening. And uh, so keep the quest alive. Uh, and if anything I've talked about today, you'd like to understand a bit more, we'll find ways to contact, you know, through the postings of this and so forth. So until next time, as I said, keep the quest alive and you know, hug a rebel. Okay. Thank you very much.